Hey guys, welcome back to the Crochet Nook. I'm Danny if you're new, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to create this adorable magic 8-ball jewelry dish slash coaster. This tutorial is super beginner friendly, so if you're just starting out, you can totally do this project. It is such a fun, quick project. If you're looking to use scrap yarn or you just need, a little dish for your jewelry, because I don't know about you guys, I'll get home and I'll just take everything off. I don't want any of it on me and it just ends up all around the house. So for me personally, I was like, okay, cool, I'll just make some jewelry dishes and put them in normal places that I leave my jewelry. Or you could use it as a coaster because they're so cute. And without further ado, let's get started. The materials that you're gonna need today are going to be a 4mm hook, 2 colors of yarn, embroidery floss. Honestly, you could find this in Hobby Lobby, in Joann Fabrics, RIP, Michael's. It'll also look like sometimes they sell them in little friendship bracelet stacks. You're also going to need a pair of scissors. Oh, it's funny, I realized everything I'm using today is pink. It's a theme. And then you're going to need an embroidery needle. Tapestry needle, sorry. So first we're going to create a magic circle. So to do that, you're gonna yarn over your fingers like this, wrap it around, and then you're gonna cross. You see how I made an X like that? Bring it around. I like to use my 4th finger right here to just kind of hold it. See how it made that X? And then you're gonna go under your first piece of yarn and you're gonna grab the second, okay? So let me grab it this way. And I'm gonna drag it under and I'm gonna twist. Then what I like to do is I like to pinch my fingers right here, wiggle my fingers out, and there you go. You have your magic circle. Then what I'm gonna do to make sure it stays sturdy, I'm just gonna chain 1. That's all. And then it's just sturdy and I don't have to worry about it moving around. Next, you're going to insert 6 single crochets into the magic circle. So to do a single crochet, you're going to go into the circle right here, yarn over and grab that yarn, pull up, so then you'll have 2 loops on this hook, and then you're going to yarn over like that, and then you're going to pull through those 2 loops. That's 1 single crochet. Now we're going to do 5 more of those. So go under, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That was 2 single crochets, 3 single crochets, 4, and 5. Once you have 6 total single crochets, you're going to close your ring. So I pinch it right here and I just pull ever so slowly just to make sure it doesn't catch anywhere. And once you feel like it's tight enough, you're gonna slip stitch into the first single crochet, the top of the first single crochet that you made. So that's gonna be right here. You can see it makes a V. You're gonna go through there. Let me wiggle it a little bit. There we go. And to slip stitch, all you do is you yarn over, pull through that little space you went through, and it looks like there's 2 loops again, and then you're going to take this loop and put it through this one. So you're going to take it and pull it through like that. That is going to be your slip stitch. And what I do at the end of every round after I slip stitch is I just chain 1. One thing that I should have mentioned earlier that I want to do, I'm going to use a stitch marker to mark the rounds of every round that I do. You can always count, but to be honest, I just forget. And nobody needs that. So if you have a stitch marker, use one of those. I've also, before I had these, I used bobby pins. Now round 2 is gonna be 6 increases all the way around. So to increase, essentially what it means is you're gonna be putting 2 single crochets into every single stitch that you just made. So I'm gonna go back into where I just slip stitched This one's gonna be a little tough to see because you just started, but it'll be like right here. And you might have to do a little wiggling to get it to go through. It gets easier the larger the circle gets, so do not give up. So as we said before, you pull up that loop, so you have 2 loops on the hook, you yarn over and you pull through. So we just did 1 single crochet. Now we're gonna go back into the space that we just went into before, and you're gonna pull up another loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That, what we just did, those 2 single crochets in the same stitch, that is the increase. So you're gonna do that 5 more times. So into the next stitch, we're going to put our first single crochet, so yarn over, pull up that loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And then we're gonna go back in where we just came from, yarn over, pull up another loop, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2. That was the second increase. All right, so the third increase. Go back in. So I should also state, this is, see, I get caught lost in the sauce all the time. So after we did our first single crochet in the first increase, which is like right here, I'm just going to put the stitch marker in right there, so I know that that's what I'm gonna slip stitch into at the end of the round. And you'll see when we get back around there, but I just wanted to mark that in there. So easy for my mind to forget. And then I will also meet you back at the end of the round, but continue doing an increase in every stitch. So 2 single crochets per stitch until you reach the end of the round. All right, so I am now at the end of round 2. I'm gonna remove my stitch marker, place it right there, and I'm gonna slip stitch into the top of the first single crochet in this row. So right where your stitch marker was, you're gonna wiggle it through, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through. And to start the new round, I chain 1. If you're enjoying this video so far, hit that like button below. I'd really appreciate it. I like to know if you guys are enjoying, if you want more of the tutorials, more of the pattern reviews, and that really helps me out. Let's get back to the video. For row 3, that is gonna be an increase and a single crochet. You're gonna do that for a total of 6 times. So meaning that in this first stitch right here, we're gonna do an increase. And then in the next stitch, we're just gonna place 1 single crochet. And then in the next one, we're gonna do another increase. So we're gonna start out with that increase. We're gonna go back into where we entered in that slip stitch. Give it a little wiggle. That's 1. I'll go back in there. 2. And I'm going to place my stitch marker in the first single crochet that I just made in that increase, which is, I know it's hard to see with my angle, but it's gonna be right there. So we just did an increase. Now in this next stitch, we're just gonna put 1 single crochet in, like that. Then in the next stitch, you're gonna do an increase. So there we go, that's 1 single crochet. Go back in to do the second single crochet. All right, and then this next stitch, you're gonna do a single crochet only. All right, and then you just keep alternating between an increase and a single crochet, an increase and a single crochet, all the way around till you reach the end, and I will meet you right there. All right, so I am now at the end of the row, and I want to just mention real quick that the further you go, and with each and every round, it's gonna look like you still have one more stitch at the end, but that is actually the slip stitch that we did the row prior. So it really is gonna look like you have one more to go. You do not. So I'm gonna remove this stitch marker right there, and I'm gonna slip stitch into where that stitch marker was, which is the top of the first single crochet right there. I'm gonna slip stitch. So pull that through and then pull through again and chain 1. So now we're on row 4. Row 4 is going to be single crochet, and then in the next stitch an increase, and then in the next stitch single crochet. So you just keep doing single crochet, increase, single crochet, single crochet, increase, single crochet. You're gonna do that 6 times to get all the way around. So let's get started. Enter right back in here, and we're starting off with a single crochet in just one single crochet in this stitch. Boom. Next, we're gonna do an increase, okay? So we know how to do that. We're gonna put those 2 single crochets into that same stitch. And before I move further, I'm going to insert my stitch marker into the top of the first stitch, the first single crochet that I did in this row, so that I know. All right, so we did a single crochet, an increase. Now we got to do another single crochet, and that completes the pattern. So we're going to start over again. So in this next stitch, we're going to do a single crochet, then an increase in the next stitch, and then another single crochet in the next stitch, and that just completed the pattern. So we start over again. So now you can kind of see how it's gonna look going around. So you just keep going single crochet, increase, single crochet, single crochet, increase, single crochet. And I will meet you back around when you reach the end of this row. All right, and now I'm at the end of the round, and like before, it's gonna look like I have one more stitch, but that's not true. That was the slip stitch from the previous round. So I'm gonna take my stitch marker out, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the first single crochet. And then I'm going to chain 1. All right, and this is going to be the last round in white, or whatever color you're currently using before we switch colors, just as a heads up. So for this round, it's gonna be 1 increase and then 3 single crochets. So we're gonna start with the increase, and then in the next stitch, a single crochet, and then another single crochet in the next stitch, and another single crochet in the next stitch, and then you repeat the pattern. So let's start with that increase. Go back, insert the hook back into where you just made that slip stitch. In the next stitch, you're gonna do a single crochet. In the next stitch, another single crochet. And then in the next stitch, another single crochet. I'm gonna pause here. I'm gonna insert my stitch marker into the first single crochet that I made to signify the end of the row when I get there. So we just completed the pattern all the way through for this round once. So now we're gonna start over. So we're gonna do an increase in this next stitch. Then we're gonna do a single crochet in the next stitch. Oop, it's catching on me a little bit. There we go. And then another single crochet in the next stitch. And another single crochet in the next stitch. Now we start the pattern over again. So an increase and then 3 single crochets. An increase and then 3 single crochets. And I will meet you back at the end of the round to then switch colors. But you're going to continue that pattern all the way around. Okay, so I am at the end of this round. And now we are going to change color. So to do that, I first and foremost, I'm going to unhook this from my ring. I'm going to snip off my yarn, give it like a decent length so you can weave in your ends. Right there. I'm going to move to the pink yarn, okay? Give it a little give. So, and I'm going to take out my stitch marker as well. So to change colors, you're going to hold the yarn out like this, okay? Just keep it in this hand. And you're going to insert your hook like you're about to slip stitch as normal. So go into that top of the first single crochet, okay? Take the yarn, wrap it around like this. Pinch it and pull through one and pull through the second one. Perfect. And then you're going to chain 1 for the start of a new row. And then what I like to do on the back, this is just my own personal choice. I like to just give this a little tie. You don't have to do a bunch of them, but it just kind of keeps everything tight. You can always undo it later, but you know, as you're going around, it just, there's less getting in your way. So I'm gonna thread this back into my ring. All right, so now we are on row 6. And for row 6, the pattern is 2 single crochets, an increase, and 2 single crochets. And you're going to do that pattern for a total of 6 times. So we're going to insert that hook where we just did the slip stitch and the change color. And yarn up. There we go. 2 loops on that hook. And single crochet. And then in the next stitch, you're going to do another single crochet. And then you're going to do an increase in this next stitch right here. So that's 1. That's 2. All right. So then in the next stitch, we're going to do another single crochet. Oh my goodness. There we go. And then in the next stitch, we're going to do another single crochet. And that was the pattern all the way through. So I'm going to put my stitch marker in to the first stitch of the row. And then we're going to start that pattern over again. So 2 single crochets and then an increase and 2 single crochets. So single crochet, next stitch, single crochet, next stitch, increase, next stitch, single crochet, next stitch, single crochet, and you just continue that same exact pattern all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. All right, so I have reached the end of the round. I'm going to remove my stitch marker and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet. And then I'm going to chain 1. For row 7, you're going to do 1 increase and then 5 single crochets. 1 increase, 5 single crochets. So to get started, let's go back into where we just put that slip stitch, and we're going to do an increase. All right, and in the next stitch, we're going to put a single crochet. And in the next stitch, another single crochet, that's 2. Next stitch, single crochet 3. Next stitch, single crochet 4. Next stitch, single crochet 5. I'm going to grab my stitch marker, put it in the first stitch. Gonna grab more yarn. I'm getting a little tangled. The downside for me of using scrap yarn sometimes gets a little tangled towards the end. So we're going to start that row, that pattern, we're going to start that pattern over again. So now we're going to do an increase in this next stitch. All right, and then in the next stitch, a single crochet. Next stitch, single crochet. Next stitch, single crochet 3. Next stitch, single crochet 4. Next stitch, single crochet 5. So now we're going to start the pattern over again, and you're just going to keep repeating the pattern until you reach the end of the round. So 1 increase and then 5 single crochets, and I will meet you back at the end of the round. All right, and now I'm at the end of the round. I'm going to remove that stitch marker, slip stitch, and chain 1. All right, and now we're into row 8. In row 8, we're going to do 3 single crochets, an increase, and another 3 single crochets. So insert the hook where you just did the slip stitch and put a single crochet. In the next stitch, another single crochet. In the next stitch, another single crochet. And then in the next stitch, we're going to do an increase. And then in the next stitch, a single crochet. In the next stitch, a single crochet. And in the next stitch, a single crochet. Whoop. And that was the first run through of the pattern for this row. And we're going to start that pattern over again. So in the next stitch, a single crochet. Next stitch, a single crochet. Next stitch, single crochet. And then in the next stitch, you're going to increase. And then in the next stitch, you're going to do a single crochet. Next stitch, single crochet. And the next stitch, single crochet. And you're going to continue that pattern all the way around till you reach the end of the row, and I will meet you there. All right, and I have made it to the end of the row, so I'm going to remove that stitch marker and slip stitch into the top of the first stitch. And then I'm going to chain 1. For row 9, we're going to do an increase and then 7 single crochets. And then an increase and 7 single crochets. So let's get started. So first we're going to enter in that increase. So we just did our increase, and now we're going to do 7 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there we go. That is the first go at the pattern. So now we're going to do another increase right in the next stitch. And then we're going to do another 7 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And you're just going to repeat that pattern again and again until you reach the end of the round. 1 increase, 7 single crochets, and I will meet you back there. All right, and I have reached the end of the row. Remove that stitch marker and insert my hook into the first stitch and slip stitch. And then I am going to chain 1. So for row 10, we're going to do 4 single crochets, an increase, and then another 4 single crochets. And that's going to be the pattern. And you'll notice it's starting to round up a little bit, so that's awesome. That's what we want. We want it to round up a little bit. So we're going to start out with a single crochet. And then in the next stitch, another single crochet. Next stitch, single crochet. Next stitch, single crochet. And then we're going to do an increase in this next stitch right here. And then we're going to do another 4 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. There we go. That was the first pattern all the way through. And then I'm going to just mark this and we're going to start the pattern over again. So 4 single crochet. So there's 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. And then in the next stitch is the increase. And then another 4 single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to start that pattern over again. And you're just going to keep doing that until you get to the end of the row, and I will meet you there. All right, so now I am at the end of that round. Gonna slip stitch. And that was the end of our increases. So for row 11 and row 12, we are just gonna put a single crochet in every stitch all the way around. So you'll single crochet all the way around, slip stitch, and chain 1. Single crochet all around again, and I will meet you at the end of that. All right, and now we're at the end of the round, and you're gonna slip stitch in, and you're going to chain 1. So after you've chained 1, what you're gonna do is you're just gonna cut your yarn, and you're gonna pull it all the way through like that, so that way it can just tighten. And you have like you have the little dish starting to form, which is cute. And then what I like to do is I like to go through and just kind of thread in my ends. However you choose to do it is up to you, but I'm going to thread them in and I will meet you back whenever I have finished threading. So next what we're going to do is sew in the 8. And so I'm going to grab my embroidery floss, which is the fancy name for string. And I'm going to grab a piece. I always like to do it longer than necessary. And you know, if you don't have the embroidery floss, you can always use the same color that you used on the inside. And then I'm going to grab my tapestry needle, I'm gonna thread it through, and I'm gonna start from the back so you can see all my little ends. You're gonna insert it into the center right here. You wanna go in the center. And pull all the way through until you have a little bit left over right here, because we're gonna tie it from the back just to secure it. All right, so I want the 8 to go like this. So you'll see these little gaps in between where you're making stitches. You're gonna go on the gaps. So go in like that and pull through, but when you get close to tightening it, you just want it to rest on top like that. You don't want to pull more than that, because otherwise it's gonna just yank the yarn. So before I continue onward though, that's when I like to tie this off in the back. All right, now that it's been double knotted, this is how I started, and I went diagonally. I'm gonna go diagonally again, right in here. Pull that up, and then you're gonna go, instead of like a diagonal line like this, you're gonna then, instead of going here, you're gonna go one over. And pull slowly so it just rests. And then instead of going straight up right here, you're gonna go one over, and it'll be in line with the initial stitch made. So pull that up, and then you're just gonna mirror it on the other side. So right there. Right here. And then you're gonna go back into that center. Go around again. I'm gonna come up through this stitch instead of going into it like we did last time. So it's right about here, like that. I'm gonna come up, and then I'm gonna go into this stitch like that. So then you'll see it start to make that pattern and connect it. So then I'm gonna come back up like that, and then you're gonna go into the top of the 8. Just like that. And then you're gonna go back through that center again, pop it back through, and then we're gonna work on the other side. So I like to turn it over. I think it's easier that way, personally. So we're gonna go diagonal. And then instead of hitting this one diagonally, you're gonna go up. And then instead of going directly up again, then you're just gonna mirror that on the other side like that. And then you come back up through, and then we're gonna go back this way. So your whole goal is to really get it to lay and make that 8 however you can. And I like to go over it a few times to darken and reinforce the 8 pattern. Because as you can tell, like the yarn that I'm using, the floss, it's not super duper thick, and I don't want it as thick as this yarn, but at the same time I also don't want it as thin, and I just kind of wanted like an in-between, and I don't have one on me, so I'm going to make the most of it and just go over it a few times. But the nice thing is, this pattern, once it's completed and you know like I have the 8 now, you know? So I'm gonna go around a few more times, but after that, you're just gonna fasten it off in the back. And there you go, that is it. That's all you have to do, and now you have this adorable little magic 8-ball jewelry dish. I hope you enjoyed the video today, and I hope you made some really cute magic 8-ball coasters and jewelry dishes. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Also, if there's any videos you'd like to see me do in the future, any tutorials, idea videos, anything like that, leave me a comment below and just let me know what you guys are working on. I love to hear from you, and until next time.